days to conduct 8-week seminars for women on American citizenship. 6 years after women received the right to vote, Dr. Clark founded the Lackawanna County League of Women Voters, which exists today in its 3rd iteration. No one in today's league knows Anna Clark's name. Dr. Clark was associate editor for the Searchlight, the voice of Lackawanna County's Republican women in the early 1920s. What made this group of women singular in local politics at the time was their refusal to toe the party line. They voted strictly on the merits of individual candidates. While this practice led to an acrimonious split among Republican women in Lackawanna County, Chapman and Clark nevertheless continued to espouse the nonpartisan goals of their suffragist days. In 1897, Dr. Clark was also professionally involved with founding Scranton's homeopathic facility, Hahnemann Hospital, today's Community Medical Center. The newly formed local homeopathic medical society, which she served as an officer, joined hands with the women of Scranton to found this hospital. I assure you, it is not widely known that a group of women founded Hahnemann in 1897, nor that an all-woman board of managers ran the hospital until 1920. In this newspaper photograph of the groundbreaking ceremony for an enlarged hospital in 1905, you might be interested to know that most of the men are identified by name, but none of the women are. Such are the disappointments one often faces in researching local history and women. Dr. Clark was a graduate of the University of Michigan's Medical School and one of a significant number of women physicians in Scranton. Most of her female peers, however, were graduates of the Philadelphia College of Medicine, founded in 1850. One of these was Gisela van Postwick, who became a nationally recognized expert in radiology. Dr. Postwick's scrapbooks are preserved in the Philadelphia College of Medicine archives. I'd like to know much more about these pioneering women physicians in our region, wouldn't you? Who knows anything of Dr. Edith Barton, Dr. Anna Law, or Dr. Lillibridge, Scranton's first women physicians? In 1930 Scranton, Elizabeth Lynott proved to be a worthy heir to Kate Chapman, Marjorie Scranton, and Anna Clark. My colleague at Marywood University, Dr. Kathleen Munley, has brought this young woman journalist's courage to our attention. Elizabeth went undercover as a factory worker in local garment-making mills and factories. She labored alongside the girls as she interviewed them, and finally wrote 3 exposés in the Scranton Times describing sweatshop conditions in Scranton. As a result of her work, the government sent a federal investigating board to Scranton to study the labor situation in Pennsylvania. Elizabeth was the first witness called. She died young, in her 50s, but not before becoming co-editor of the newspaper her father had established. How can we determine which editorials she wrote and what other causes she espoused? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Elizabeth belonged to a well-established tradition of women journalists in Scranton. She was preceded by nationally known Susan E. Dickinson, co-editor of another of Scranton's newspapers, the Scranton Truth. Elizabeth Lynott was preceded by feature writers Emily Wilcox and Mrs. C.B. Penman. All of these women used the press to forward agendas that were political, philanthropic, and reforming. So when studying women's history in Scranton, we mustn't forget the women journalists who kept issues alive in politics, in the political conscience, and worked until solutions were found to local, municipal, and social problems. There are so many more women that I should be mentioning this afternoon, and I've only mentioned the Scranton ladies. think what northeastern PA has to tell us. I've given you a simple highlights tour of women's history in Scranton as it's beginning to reveal itself, but histories of women exist throughout northeastern PA. In Pike County, I'm researching the fascinating life of Cornelia Bryce Pinchot, twice First Lady of Pennsylvania. And I'm going to allow Cornelia the last word today because there's much truth in her words that I have found as I study the lives and deeds of historical women in Lackawanna, Luzerne, Wayne, Susquehanna, Pike, Bradford, and yes, now Wyoming counties. Cornelia said, "My feminism tells me that a woman can bear children, charm her lovers, boss a business, swim the channel, stand at Armageddon, and battle for the Lord, all in a day's work." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dunn. We've got some more questions for you, and I'm just wondering, for you as an art historian by trade, what was it that sparked your interest in studying the history of women in northeastern Pennsylvania?
I actually started by studying women artists in northeastern Pennsylvania, and then it just sort of took flight from there. I realized that there were lots of other stories that hadn't been told, so I just jumped in.
Hi, your comment or question for Dr. Dunn?
Sure. Dr. Dunn, my name is Bill Blackman, and I certainly applaud all the work you have done in bringing to the surface the women of northeastern Pennsylvania. There's a name that is synonymous, I guess, to folks in Lackawanna County and Luzerne County and Wyoming County. That name is Slocum. And there is a story of one child who, at about 11 o'clock on the morning of the 2nd of November, 1778, was kidnapped by Indians. And we keep Frances Slocum's memory alive through a state park named in her honor, etc. But that's about it. There's no retelling of the story. Children in school don't know the name. And if you ask who Frances Slocum was, sometimes you will hear, "Oh, he was a kid," and of course, you know you're lost at that point. What will it take to keep names like Frances Slocum and all the wonderful women you talked about here alive?
We start first with research. We find them, we write about them, and we get them into the textbooks. If we get them into the textbooks, then our children know them, and we can perpetuate the stories that way. That's my thought on it. Let's get them into the textbooks.
Hi, your name and your comment or question for our guest.
I'm Bonniekowski, and I work with the Northern Tier Cultural Alliance. And one of the most exciting things that has happened in the 15 years that we've been working is looking at the local history that has been developed by the Underground Railroad Group in Montrose, Pennsylvania, the Anti-Slavery Society, the new Anti-Slavery Society. And there's one woman in particular that they have talked about. The reason that the Montrose is so important is it was not only a station on the railroad, but many of the African Americans who came from the South were adopted into the town and spirited in and out of the town whenever people were coming to investigate them. But the one woman that I think is significant, and I apologize, I can't even remember her first name, but she was Miss Post, and her father was very instrumental in the anti-slavery movement. Miss Post taught a whole group of African American escapees to read. And she did it specifically at times when they were not allowed to learn to read anywhere else in the country, really. And it's a very exciting project that has 15 years of research behind it now. Very, very rich, and what a great job those people in Montrose have done.
I couldn't agree more. I am so excited by what's going on in Montrose with the Underground Railroad Project and with the Center for Anti-Slavery Studies. The Wooden family has been involved in that project, and gosh, we're so far along. I'm delighted to hear about Miss Post. She's in the book now. Consider it done.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, my name is Mark Sansavich. I live in Springville. Just north of Springville is a place called the Woodburn Sanctuary.
Yes,
And around the turn of the century, the man came and built the home and started the orchard and everything. But his daughter, Theodora Gray, I believe was commissioned by the British Columbia government to study plant and animal life up in the Northern Territories, like way before Gore-Tex and Thinsulate and everything, which they found a lot of plant life and animal life up there, and not many people know about her.
this is true. There have been a few books written that I don't think are widely disseminated in the community. We need to get them done more. I'm in communication with the family, and we're hoping that we can start getting her name known more. She really falls into a category that I haven't studied as much, and that is the women who were naturalists and scientists. I mean, I haven't even scratched the surface on that story, and there's some amazing tales there too, and Theodora Cope is one of them. Absolutely.
We have learned so much today from our speaker and our audience about what sadly is a little-known subject, the history of women in northeastern Pennsylvania. Dr. Dunn, before we wrap up our program, how about a final thought for us?
A final thought. I would say that you are all commissioned, as you leave today, to seek out the documents, to save the documents. That's our most precious source for writing the history of women in our region. And writing the history of women is writing the history of men. It's writing the history of our region. It's much, much bigger than simply women's history. It's the voice that we've lost and that we need to get in touch with in order, I think, to know our region's history and to move forward into a brighter future.
What a wonderful program. How about a round of applause for Dr. Josephine Dunn? Thank you so much. And many thanks to our audience here at the Dietrich Theater as well, and special thanks to our host, the Wyoming County Cultural Center at the Dietrich Theater, for having us and hosting such a wonderful event. Of course, this program, Humanities on the Road, is a joint project between the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and the Pennsylvania Cable Network. There are lots of more great shows to come, so we hope you'll tune in for those. And if you would like more information on the humanities, please go to the website, pahumanities.org. There's information about all the shows, as well as speakers like Dr. Josephine Dunn, who are featured for free in every county in Pennsylvania. So make sure that you look that up and get some more information. Thank you again so much for joining us. I'm Tracy Matisak, and we'll see you next time.